That's why I went to those examples, because your belief creates your stories, and your stories reinforce your belief, and then priming could reinforce all of that or take you even deeper. And you have external priming and internal priming, and then that creates the condition. And in order to break out of the condition, you have to take some action. My best client is the person who's tried everything. They've tried everything, they've just given up. Because I'll use those words with them when things get stuck, because the inner work is hard. It's not hard, physically hard or difficult. It's just scary because it's the unknown, and the subconscious looks at the unknown as a Serengeti tiger. So it's like every day you're like having to face this tiger, and you get tired. You get tired of facing this tiger, even though every day when you reach out to touch the tiger, it dissolves. Soon you stop reaching out to touch it because you just are aware of it, and you become aware and it dissolves. And then eventually you get to the point where you just ignore it, and then you just notice it's just a data point. The Serengeti tigers are just data points. So that's what happens in this loop. That's why when the client pays for the coaching, they're already probably halfway there. Now they need the tools and the resources. But that is the action that shifts this whole thing towards the condition being better. Our internal environment, which could be toxic because of the stress, because of the kind of foods we eat, lack of sleep, whatever, our internal environment is the external environment of our cells. What happens if your internal environment is toxic? The cells shut down. So they've shown that cells have two configurations. One configuration when they're going after nutrients, think about eating and growing, and another configuration when they're in protective mode. So when there's threats around them, the cell goes into protective mode. What's interesting is it can't go after nutrients when it's in protective mode. So now that's why you can see that shutting down creates more and more and more problems. So if you're in a toxic environment and your body, that's your external environment, you respond and become a different kind of a person, and that creates toxicity inside. Now your cells are shutting down and you're not getting the nutrients you need, and that creates more stress. And now your brain is starting to leach from other organs to make sure it gets what it needs. And you can see why people say that you can create your own illnesses. And that's a way of looking at it. That's why I started with this conversation, that if I'm going to change somebody's behaviors, it's not about me changing their values and behaviors. That's not what I want to do. I want to present them with the references and enable them to have leadership and agency. And then they decide based on the references what they want their beliefs, values, and attitudes to be. And that's what designing your life comes down to.